Hey there, everybody. Today is going to be the review for 90 Days to Your Novel. I have lost the dust jacket. No idea where it is. So we're rolling with this. It's fine. About a decade ago, I went into Barnes & Noble, and one of those like clearance tables they used to have, this was on it. And I was a writer. I was trying to get into writing. I was a teenager, and I was like, oh my god, Mom and Dad, I need this book. 90 Days to Your Novel. I can do it. I had been doing NaNoWriMo as a teen, but I was not very good at sticking to it. So I thought, oh, instead of 30 days, I can probably do it in 90 days. And then I never opened the book until over 10 years later. It's fine. I was pretty excited for the concept of this, which was to begin outlining your novel, go through some steps, and then write your novel all in 90 days. That is what the essential premise of this book was, and I thought it was great. So if you guys haven't seen my series of the writing semester, I did this through my writing semester, and I ended up not writing a novel through it because I kind of overdid myself, but I still read through this book and took extensive notes and whatnot, and highlighted things and jotted things down in the margin, and then I also took some notes to do a review video because I was like, oh, it'll be kind of cool to do one anyway. But then the further I got along in it, I was like, I'm doing a review video. This has to happen. Wow, my hair is I got a lot of little flyaways. It's fine. Get back on track. The beginning is really good. It talks about outlines and it says how wonderful outlines can be, and it gives you a bunch of different types of outlines and different ways to do it, so you kind of get to figure out what works best for you and work on it, which was amazing. I say some things like, you're going to have to critically assess your novel's ideas and components before writing. And then in the middle of week 7, I think that's supposed to be 7. As we are writing, we introduce themes. So that right there was something that I picked up on once I got there. I was like, why are we introducing the theme when we're supposed to be really analyzing what's going to be going on before we start writing? We're already writing the novel in week 7, and then boom, let's introduce themes. Wait a minute, hold on, scratch that, right all the way back to the beginning. What's your theme gonna be? And that kind of caught me off guard. I mean, not really, because some of the other stuff that was going on, I was kind of like, why are we suddenly not doing this in the beginning? This is kind of a beginning thing when you're thinking of the theme. What's the theme gonna be? What is your outline? What is the purpose? What is this? What is your characters, your setting, etc., etc., etc.? But we don't get theme until we've already begun writing the novel. That just seemed very weird to me and very out of place, especially with that quote of, you are going to have to critically assess your novel's ideas and components before writing. It just seemed very weird to me, and that was what a lot of it ended up being. It's very against people who don't outline. A direct quote was, yawn, eye roll, sigh, oh petunias. The line for excuse makers begins here. And then she proceeds to say on the next page that not everybody processes and utilizes information in the same manner. And I kind of was like, okay, this is kind of harsh. Why are you going to say that people are boring and that people are excuse makers, but then go on to say that everyone does things differently? That kind of was, I think, one of the first things that really grated me. But I was like, you know what? Some people are so hard outliners that they just don't understand the process of people who aren't outliners. And that's okay. So I kind of hoped for better after that, but clearly, It has some great information on scene and how a scene should provide the reader with information on every page, which is true. You should be getting information. So one thing that I think this book did pretty good was that it had some daily exercises that everyone was to do, of getting into writing, getting your brain used to writing. While you were kind of outlining, you were also writing, which was great. The only thing that I didn't like was the expectation that everyone has 3 hours a day to do said exercises. And sometimes you have 3 hours a day. Sometimes you don't. I personally, most days, could probably squeeze in a couple hours, but I have other days where it's down to the minute of planning things out and making sure that I'm getting places on time and planning things, and it just would not work out. I would get maybe 30 minutes. So to have that expectation that everyone just has 3 hours a day lying around was kind of like, but like that wasn't a big deal. The exercises were great. I think it is a really great thing to get people writing every day. That is one thing that makes you a better writer, is writing every day. We're on to page 2 of my notes that I apparently have in weird orders. So day 1, we use memories to trigger potential ideas, which is a great way to start, especially when you're struggling with ideas. If you're kind of like, I want to write something, but I don't know what to write, using your memories can be a really good way to start, because you might have some wild story that you have, from college or something that could be an aspect to your story, and you can blossom the novel or the idea off of that idea. And I thought that was great. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that's cool. That is a great way to start, to dive into your own, the memories that you have, the images that you already have, pull them out, write them down, and potentially we're going to use those later. That was excellent. When I read that, I was like, yes, this is such a good idea. And I was really excited at that point because, oh my gosh, yes. So day 3, though, kind of contradicts day 1. You create character sheets with the people from day 1. And I was like, okay, that's actually a really good way to learn characters, is by taking people that you know and answering questions on a character sheet. And this book actually did have pretty good character sheets, at least that I thought, of the different types of questions to ask about your characters. I thought it was done really well. I did like the character sheets in this. Excellent. 100% loved them. But then these characters that you have just taken from your real life memories are now the characters of your novel. And I was like, wait, what? Hold on. I think one of my memories was with me and my dad and someone else. And so I did some of the character sheets for other characters that I had, because I was like, I don't really need to do the characters for them. But then I got to that day and I was like, wait, you're supposed to use the characters from your real life to have in your novel? That seemed kind of odd to me. And I was like, I guess you could change them up a little and use them. But just the way it was worded, I double, triple, quadrupled checked this. Yes, it was the characters from your memories that are now the characters in your novel. That kind of was like, okay, ew, maybe just bad editing though, but whatever. But it does do really good about talking about setting, scene, dialogue, narration, etc. It has some great info about those topics in this book, which I really loved, because it was like, oh yeah, you're actually getting some really good information about how to build a scene, how to narrate, how to really enhance your setting, etc., etc., etc. It did kind of bounce around these topics, though. It wasn't like, okay, here's your setting, here's piece 1, 2, 3. It was like setting, narration, scene, back to setting, back to narration, scene. And I felt like the different topics could have probably been put together and less spread all over the place. But that's more of just a me, I guess. But I didn't like how it was spread out like that. I would have liked to have here's lesson 1, setting, and we're going to go deep into the setting and learn all the information in one go, move on to the next thing. That, for me personally, is what I would like, because I don't like to jump around, because if I finish a chapter and we were on setting, and then we pop back up to setting a few chapters down the line, I thought we ended already. I thought we had resolved that lesson, and now we're doing more. It feels like we suddenly get thrown into making an outline. All of a sudden, we're like, make an outline. And then after the outline is done, we then get into narrative arcs, assessing scene variety. We talk about the 3-arc structure. And I'm like, why is the research coming after? I feel like these should be things that are talked about before we get into our outline. Those are major things when you're building an outline to consider, that I feel like having after we've built the outline, to then you have to go relook at your outline and rebuild your outline just made no sense at all. There are some great exercises. I will admit that. I think I admitted there's some pretty good info too. There are some great exercises like multiple first lines. She has you go through and write out, like, I think it was like 20 potential first lines for your novel. And I think that's a really great exercise, especially since first lines can be the hardest. So 100% kudos to that. Those were fantastic. I loved those exercises because they do really shine a light on particularly hard spots of the writing process, and to have that and use that is really good. And I thought it was excellent that she had that in there. And other exercises, there's a few other ones that were kind of similar that was like, yes, this is amazing. It will help the writer really hit the nail on the head when they are writing that first line. Because your first line needs to be a hook. Your first line you need to read and like, boom, I am instantly attached. One of my favorite novels is The Scorpio Races. And the first line is literally, it is the first day of November and today someone will die. Or I think I kind of paraphrase that, but that's basically it. Today is the first day of November and so today someone will die. Hello? Why is somebody dying? You know? A hook that makes you ask questions and be like, what is going on, is what you want. So to have those kind of exercises that focus on those things was fantastic. I will 100% give that. The first act, we get to the point where we're going to be writing the book. We've gone through the outline, fixing up the outline, making it really tight and good, and following what exactly we want. We've kind of dabbled in a little bit of scenes at this point, kind of like potentially adding things to the book. And then we get into Act 1. And I'm like, perfect. We're getting into Act 1. And we write that in less than a week. Week done. Boom. And I was like, is this NaNoWriMo? Like, I feel like we're not in 90 days to your novel anymore. This is like speed run writing round. And I would have liked to have more of, maybe like a month of prepping and then 2 months or so of writing. But that obviously didn't happen. It felt like it was rushed to get the writing in. We get to week 2 of writing, and we get to, I think it gets into Act 2 at that point, and it skips around. Like, it's like, okay, write the first scene of Act 2, and then the last scene of Act 2, and then, like, your midpoint, and then fill in the blanks. And it's like, why are we doing that? We have an outline. To follow the outline, why am I now being, like, tossed around? And this was when I really started getting irritated, not gonna lie, because to me, if we're gonna focus so heavily on this outline, why are we not going in the order of the outline? I get, like, some people will jump around and whatnot, but for the purpose of this book, it should be right in the order of this outline, not, oh, we're in Act 2 now, here, write the first scene, and then tomorrow we're gonna write the last scene, and fill in the blanks. And I think that's about when the theme popped in, where I had said, like, suddenly we had a theme, when we were supposed to have everything done in the very beginning before we started writing. So those just all kind of threw me off. I was like, what is going on? This has become so discombobulated. It feels like she doesn't use an outline for her book about using an outline and is so strict on outlines. So we get to week 8 and it says that we've written a bunch of the story, but I did not feel like we were at anything, that we were just bouncing around. And maybe that's because I didn't, take the time and write alongside this, but I did sit down and really read through it. I, highlighted, wrote notes, etc. And based off of what we talked about and how we went through this, I didn't feel like would have written hardly anything at this point. And apparently we're supposed to be almost done. So to me, that also was one of those things where I'm like, what is going on? She said write 5 different scenes or something, and now, ta-da, you're almost done. Well, that's only 5 scenes. So that also felt like we weren't following an outline. that's pretty much the end of my notes. The last few notes say, seeming to jump around the type of scenes that we were writing. That's what it felt like. We're just bouncing back and forth. Why not chronological, like I said, and jumping through different types of scenes, which was very confusing. So those are kind of my notes on that matter. I think I rated it like a 1 star or something on Goodreads, 1 or 2 stars, because the concept of it was really great. Of building an outline, going through the more difficult parts of coming up with your setting and your characters and the theme and etc. The theme didn't come into later, but you know, those aspects, to sit down and really research and get into them and build the story before you even get into the story, and then we can work together to write the story. I thought that was a phenomenal idea, and that is why I picked up this book. But reading through it, the first part does feel true to this concept, besides her rude comments about people who don't use outlines. Little jabs like that really kind of annoyed me, but it wasn't like end all be all for the novel, for the book. But as we got more through it, and it kind of just felt everything was just kind of chucked in, or we started working on something and then she was like, oh, I need to add this thing, instead of going back to add it, just kind of threw it in. And I didn't like that. I felt like if you're a first-time writer, especially, picking something like this up, it can get very confusing. I obviously have gone to college for writing, and I have a lot of books on my shelf that are like craft books on writing. So I have studied a lot of how to write a good story, how to write a novel, how to make it the best it can be. And I'm always working on learning that as well. Like, I always watch new videos, I watch read craft books, etc. I'm always looking to expand, because there's never a point when you're learning something that you have learned all of it. You can still expand your knowledge. And I fully believe that about writing, and so I always have an open mind to new things and whatnot, but this just felt chaotic and confusing. And for me, if I picked this up, if I had read this back when I had picked it up, I think I would have been so confused and so lost that I don't know how much of it I would have actually read, or how much would it have helped me. The beginning, yes, some of the exercises absolutely would have helped, but the jumping around at the end, and it just felt like all of her advice from the beginning went out the window. And for that, I had to rate it low, because it just kept going downhill and couldn't bring itself back. I hope you enjoyed this video that's basically a rant about the things in this book, and yeah. If you guys have any craft books that you would like me to read on writing and give a review for, please let me know down below. I would love to do so. And remember, reviews are opinions. You might pick this book up and think it's great, but this is just my opinion as a writer on this book. And so everyone's opinion varies on things like this. So who knows? It might be a 5-star for somebody else. But for me, it was not more than a 2-star, and I think it was more like a 1-star. So yeah. But once again, if you have any craft books that you would like me to read on writing and give a review for, drop them down below. I will gladly do those. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye!